Captain Minho woke in a cell that seemed to be carved from solid shadow. The walls absorbed light so completely that he could barely see his own hands. He remembered the battle clearly. His ship had been trying to retreat when the massive Watcher vessel had somehow grabbed the Soul's Pride without touching it. One moment they were fleeing, the next they were trapped in a cargo bay larger than most space stations. Footsteps echoed in the darkness beyond his cell. Not the mechanical sounds he might expect from robots, but the organic rhythm of living beings walking. A section of the wall dissolved, revealing a corridor filled with the same light-eating darkness. Two figures approached, and Minho was surprised to see they looked almost human. The leader was tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow slightly in the darkness. His eyes were ancient beyond measure, but his face showed the same basic structure as a human face. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of millennia. "I am Commander Kethmore of the Watchers. You are Captain Minho of the human vessel Soul's Pride. We need to talk." Minho stood straighter, drawing on his military training. "I am a prisoner of war. According to galactic conventions, I am required to give only my name, rank, and service number." Kethmore made a sound that might have been laughter. "Galactic conventions created by species barely older than your morning coffee. I have been alive since before your son was born, Captain. But you are correct that you are not truly a prisoner. You are here because your species presents us with an impossible puzzle." The cell wall dissolved completely, and Kethmore gestured for Minho to follow him. Against his better judgment, Minho stepped into the corridor. The darkness around them seemed alive, moving and shifting like a living thing. "Your legends," Kethmore said as they walked. "They describe us with perfect accuracy. They contain details about our ships, our methods, our philosophy. This should not be possible. We have never encountered your species before this moment." They entered a vast chamber where screens showed images of human cultures throughout history, cave paintings of dark ships in the sky, ancient texts describing cosmic judges, modern human colonies sending warnings about watchers from the void. "Every human culture preserves the same core stories," Kethmore continued. "Beings who come from the darkness between stars to test civilizations. Gardeners who prune the galaxy when species grow too proud. Ships that drink starlight and leave empty space behind." Minho studied the displays, seeing his own cultural heritage reflected in alien technology. "Our ancestors were very good at preserving important stories. We have always believed that legends contain truth. But where did they learn the truth?" Kethmore asked, turning to face him directly. "We have records of every culling cycle for the past 1,000,000 years. Never have we made contact with your home world. Never have we spared a species to carry our secrets. Yet your people know us as if they designed us themselves." Before Minho could answer, another watcher approached. This one was smaller, with features that seemed more familiar somehow. She carried data tablets that glowed with soft light. "Commander," she said, "the genetic analysis is complete. The results are unprecedented." Kethmore took the tablet and studied it carefully. As he read, his ancient face showed the first real emotion Minho had seen. Shock, followed by something that looked like grief. "Show me the comparative analysis," Kethmore said quietly. The woman activated a holographic display that showed two genetic sequences side by side. Even without scientific training, Minho could see they were remarkably similar. "Too similar to be coincidence." "Captain Minho," Kethmore said, his voice heavy with revelation, "you are not human as we understand the term. You are our children. Your species carries genetic markers that can only come from Watcher DNA. You are our own people, changed and grown into something new." Minho felt the ground shift beneath his understanding of everything. "That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records going back millions of years." "You evolved on Earth," Kethmore agreed, "but not entirely naturally. 50,000 years ago, during the last culling cycle, a group of Watchers refused to participate in the harvest. They called themselves the Shepherds, and they believed the culling cycle was wrong. They thought galactic civilization should be allowed to grow and change naturally. The holographic display shifted to show star maps and battle formations. Ancient ships engaged in combat while planets watched from below. "The Shepherds rebelled against the Watchers' ancient purpose," Kethmore continued. "They stole genetic samples and technological knowledge, then fled to a primitive world on the galactic rim. A world you call Earth." Minho stared at the images of ancient civil war. "They hit on our planet? More than that. They integrated with your primitive ancestors. They gave up their technology. Their long lives, even their memories. But they encoded something in your DNA. Instructions, guidelines, the ability to remember us when we returned. The display showed humans throughout history, always looking to the stars, always telling stories about beings from the void. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Your legends are not myths, Captain. They are genetic memories. Cultural programming designed to activate when the Watchers returned. The shepherds prepared your species to be our opposition when the next culling cycle began. Kethmore walked to a window that showed the galaxy beyond. For 50,000 years I have served the Watchers' purpose without question. We believed the culling was necessary to prevent galactic civilizations from destroying themselves through unchecked advancement. But seeing you, speaking with you, I begin to understand what the shepherds saw. He turned back to Minho. Your species represents something we thought impossible. Growth without stagnation. Advancement without arrogance. Diversity without chaos. You are what galactic civilization could become if we stopped pruning it back to primitiveness every 50,000 years. Minho felt the weight of revelation settling on his shoulders. The other human colonies that are fighting back, the warnings we've been sending, the tactical knowledge in our legends, all of it was planned? All of it, Kethmore confirmed. Your ancestors were rebel watchers who sacrificed everything to give the galaxy a chance at true freedom. They programmed your species to be their final weapon against the culling cycle. The chamber's doors opened, and more watchers entered. These carried reports from the galactic front, where the culling had begun in earnest. Kethmore read them quickly, his expression growing troubled. The other species are uniting under human guidance, he said. Your people are sharing the tactical knowledge from your legends. They are activating ancient weapons caches that the shepherds hid throughout the galaxy. For the first time in a million years, the Watchers face organized resistance. Minho straightened with pride. Humanity never backs down from a fight, especially when we're protecting others. Yes, Kethmore said quietly. I can see the shepherds in you. Their courage, their determination, their willingness to sacrifice for others. You are everything they hoped their children would become. He made a decision that would change the fate of the galaxy. Captain Minho, I am going to send you back to your people. When you return, tell them this. Not all Watchers support the culling. Some of us remember what it was like to hope for something better. As Minho was escorted back to his ship, he carried with him the greatest revelation in human history. Humanity was not just another species fighting for survival. They were the carefully planned children of ancient rebels, designed to end the cycle of galactic destruction forever. The legends were not just stories. They were a strategic plan 50,000 years in the making, and the final battle was about to begin. The emergency alarm shrieked through the corridors of Nexus Prime Station as Ambassador Hyunwoo ran toward the council chambers. His diplomatic uniform was wrinkled from sleeping in his office, but there had been no time to change. 3 more human colonies had vanished in the past week, and this time they had managed to send partial distress signals before the darkness took them. The council chamber was chaos when he arrived. Representatives from dozens of species talked loudly in their native languages, while holographic displays showed the locations of missing colonies. Chancellor Ixari Prime's crystals flashed angry red colors as she tried to maintain order. The situation has escalated beyond acceptable parameters, she announced, her bell-like voice cutting through the noise. 47 star systems have now gone silent across the outer rim. For the first time, we have received partial communications before the disappearances. Elder Vathos slammed his stone fist on his chair. Show us these transmissions. If we are finally getting intelligence on our enemy, we need to analyze every detail. The main display activated, showing a recording from the human colony on Kepler 442. The image was grainy and filled with interference, but they could see a young woman speaking rapidly into the camera. Behind her, warning lights flashed and people ran through corridors. This is Colony Administrator Kim from Kepler 442, the woman said, her voice shaking but determined. We are under attack by vessels matching the descriptions in the old legends. Ships so black they seem to cut holes in space itself. They emit no energy signatures our sensors can detect, but they are absorbing all light around them. The transmission broke up for a moment, then cleared to show the woman looking directly at the camera. They are not using conventional weapons. The ships simply approach our defensive platforms and the platforms vanish. No explosions, no debris. Our people are abandoning the outer stations, but the shadow ships are moving toward the planet. Static filled the screen before the woman appeared again, now clearly terrified but still reporting. The ships that eat starlight are real. The Watchers from the Void have returned. Someone needs to warn the homeworlds before. The transmission cut to black. The council chamber fell silent. Hyunwoo stood slowly, knowing this was his moment. Honored representatives, that woman described our attackers using terms from human legends that are thousands of years old. Ships that eat starlight, Watchers from the Void. These are not random descriptions. They are precise technical details preserved in our oldest stories. High Voice Thuron 9 spoke for the Kalari Collective. The human colonies are the only ones providing useful intelligence. All other species settlements simply vanish without any communication. How do you explain this difference? Hyunwoo had been expecting this question. Our legends taught us what to look for. When other species see something beyond their understanding, they have no context for describing it. But humans have stories that match exactly what is happening. Our people recognize the threat and know how to respond. Chancellor Ixari Prime's crystals shifted to a puzzled blue color. You suggest your primitive ancestors encountered these entities before? But your species has no historical records of interstellar contact prior to 2 centuries ago. Not historical records, Hyunwoo corrected. Legends, stories, myths that we thought were fantasy but now appear to be historical accounts disguised as entertainment. Meanwhile, hundreds of light years away, Dr. So Young was making discoveries that would change everything. Deep in the ancient ruins on Kepler 186, she had found something that made her hands shake as she worked. Tae-min, she called, her voice echoing in the underground chamber. You need to see this immediately. Commander Tae-min rushed to where she knelt beside a massive stone wall covered in carvings. Unlike the other ruins they had explored, these carvings showed star maps with impossible detail. Not just the positions of nearby stars, but the entire galactic spiral with markers indicating specific worlds. These maps are 50,000 years old, So Young said, pointing to dating marks carved at the bottom. But look at this symbol here. She indicated a small blue star marked with unique symbols that differed from all the others. Tae-min studied the markings carefully, then felt his blood turn cold. That's our sun, he said quietly. That's the Sol system. So Young nodded, her face pale. This world is marked differently from all the others. While every other star system is marked with symbols meaning harvest or cull, our system is marked with symbols meaning preserve and remember. She led him to another section of the wall where the carvings told a story in pictures. Ancient beings that looked remarkably like the shadow ships in recent reports had come to the galaxy long ago. They had harvested most civilizations, but one small world had been spared. The carvings showed this world being visited by different beings, ones that looked more like the people living in the galaxy now. Tae-min, I think some of the Watchers rebelled against the culling, So Young said. These carvings suggest that rebels came to Earth and did something to our ancestors. They prepared us somehow. Before Tae-min could respond, their communicators activated with an emergency signal. Captain Minho's voice came through, strained and urgent. All stations, this is Seoul's Pride. We have made contact with a Watcher scout vessel. They attempted to capture us for interrogation, but we managed to escape. However, we recorded everything. The beings operating these ships are not what we expected. The signal cleared as Minho continued his report. The entities aboard the shadow ships appear to be organic, not mechanical. They are ancient beyond measure, but they are not monsters. They speak of duty, of cycles, of preventing galactic civilizations from destroying themselves. They call themselves gardeners of the galaxy. So Young exchanged glances with Tae-min. Gardeners, she repeated. That matches the ancient carvings. They see themselves as caretakers who prune back galactic civilization every 50,000 years. But why do our legends contain such accurate information about them? Tae-min asked. So Young looked back at the star map on the wall, with Earth marked as the one world that was preserved rather than harvested. Because some of them disagreed with the culling cycle. Some of them came to our world and gave our ancestors the knowledge to resist when the time came. The implications hit them both at the same moment. Humanity was not just another species that happened to have accurate legends. They were the descendants of a deliberate plan, created by rebel Watchers who wanted to end the eternal cycle of galactic culling. Back on Nexus Prime, Hyunwoo was presenting the growing evidence to the Council. Our research teams have discovered ruins throughout the galaxy that confirm the cyclical nature of these attacks. Every 50,000 years, these entities return to harvest advanced civilizations. The evidence suggests they are not invaders, but beings who see themselves as preventing galactic self-destruction. Elder Vathos leaned forward with interest. And you believe your legends contain strategic information about fighting them? Not just fighting them, Hyunwoo replied. Understanding them. Our stories suggest that not all Watchers support the culling cycle. Some may be convinced to end it permanently. Chancellor Ixari Prime's crystals brightened with hope. If this is true, perhaps we can negotiate rather than fight an impossible war. We will need to prepare for both possibilities, Hyunwoo said. But yes, I believe our legends are actually strategic plans left by ancient allies. Plans for ending the cycle of galactic culling forever. As he spoke, Hyunwoo wondered if his ancestors had ever imagined their carefully preserved stories would one day save not just humanity, but every thinking species in the galaxy. The legends were awakening, and with them, hope for a future beyond the ancient cycle of destruction. In the empty darkness between galaxies, where no natural light had shone for billions of years, ancient engines began to wake. The ship was vast beyond measure, its hull crafted from materials that seemed to exist in the spaces between atoms. Commander Kethmore stood on the bridge that could hold 1,000 beings, watching displays that showed the distant spiral of their target galaxy. Kethmore was old when the current galactic civilizations were young. His species had mastered the void between stars before the Vorth learned to sing with crystal voices. He had watched 100 worlds grow proud and fall silent. Time meant little to the Watchers, but purpose meant everything. Report, he commanded, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. Sub-Commander Nexval approached, moving with the fluid grace of a being that had never known gravity's limitations. The survey fleets have completed their observations, Commander. The galaxy shows the expected signs of unchecked growth. 3 major powers dominate most systems. Technology levels approach the danger threshold. Kethmore nodded slowly. It was always the same pattern. Young species discovered faster than light travel, formed alliances, built great works, and forgot the lessons of humility. They believed their brief moment of power would last forever. They never considered that others had walked the same path before them. How many inhabited systems? He asked. Approximately 50,000, with populations ranging from millions to billions. The Vorth Empire controls the galactic core through crystalline resonance networks. The Kalari Collective has consumed most of the eastern spiral arm through hive mind expansion. The Thren Dominion holds the northern territories with ancient weapons and bitter pride. Kethmore studied the tactical displays that showed each civilization's strengths and weaknesses. The Vorth were builders, creating beauty but losing the warrior spirit. The Kalari were efficient but predictable in their collective thinking. The Thren were dangerous fighters but too proud to adapt quickly. And the younger species? He asked. Nexval hesitated for a moment. Several dozen minor powers exist in scattered systems. Most follow standard development patterns. However, there is one anomaly that requires your attention. The main display shifted to show a small region of space marked in questioning symbols. Kethmore leaned forward with interest. In 50,000 years of culling cycles, anomalies were rare and usually important. Show me, he commanded. They call themselves humans, Nexval explained. A species barely 2 centuries into space travel. They should be irrelevant, but our scouts report several disturbing observations. Images appeared on the screen showing human ships, cities, and cultural displays. Kethmore studied them carefully, noting their crude but effective technology, their diverse appearance, and their chaotic but energetic society. What makes them disturbing? He asked. Their legends, Commander. Every human culture contains detailed stories about beings matching our exact description. They speak of watchers who sleep between stars, ships that drink light, and cycles of galactic judgment. Some of their stories even describe our vessel configurations with impossible accuracy. Kethmore felt something he had not experienced in millennia. Surprise. Show me these legends. The display filled with human texts, songs, and visual art. Tales of cosmic hunters who appeared from the void to test civilizations. Stories of shadow ships that came when species grew too proud. Warnings about entities that judged worlds and found them wanting. This is impossible, Kethmore said quietly. We have never encountered this species before. Our records show no contact with their homeworld. How could they possess such detailed knowledge of our methods? Nexval displayed more data. Our analysis suggests their legends are not recent inventions. Some date back thousands of their years, long before they achieved spaceflight. The consistency across their cultures is unprecedented. Kethmore studied the human stories with growing unease. In all his long existence, no species had ever predicted the Watcher's return with such accuracy. The humans described not just the ships and methods, but the philosophy behind the culling cycles. They understood that the Watchers came to prevent galactic civilizations from destroying themselves through unchecked advancement. "Have they shared this knowledge with the other species?" he asked. "Yes, Commander. Our scouts monitored their recent diplomatic communications. They warned the Galactic Council about our return, describing our ships and methods in detail. However, the other species dismissed their warnings as primitive mythology." Kethmore almost smiled at that. The arrogance of the older species would work in the Watcher's favor, as it always did. But the humans' knowledge remained a mystery that troubled him. "Begin the testing phase," he ordered. "Start with isolated colonies on the galactic rim. We need to evaluate current defensive capabilities before the main assault." "What of the humans, Commander? Should we prioritize their elimination?" Kethmore considered the question carefully. Standard procedure would be to remove the most aware species first, preventing them from organizing effective resistance. But the humans' impossible knowledge suggested something deeper was happening. They might hold answers to questions he had not yet learned to ask. Monitor them closely, he decided. Take some of their outer colonies to test their responses, but do not destroy them completely yet. I want to understand how they came by their knowledge before we proceed. As the Black Fleet began its journey toward the galaxy, Kethmore continued studying the human legends. One story particularly caught his attention. It spoke of a great battle in the void where the Watchers themselves were divided. Some had chosen to end the eternal cycle, while others remained loyal to the ancient purpose. The story claimed that the rebels had been defeated but not destroyed, and that they would return when the galaxy needed them most. Kethmore dismissed it as primitive fantasy, but something about the tale felt familiar. Deep in his ancient memory, beyond the reach of conscious thought, something stirred. A half-remembered dream of choice and consequence, of loyalty tested and paths not taken. He pushed the feeling aside and focused on the tactical displays. The galaxy ahead was ripe for harvesting. 3 major powers had grown complacent in their strength. Dozens of minor species had forgotten the lessons of humility. It was time for another culling, another reset of galactic civilization. But first he would learn the truth about the humans and their impossible legends. In 50,000 years of service to the Watcher's purpose, nothing had ever been impossible before. The fact that something was happening beyond his understanding meant the galaxy might hold surprises worth investigating. As the Black Fleet crossed the void toward its distant target, Kethmore prepared for what should have been a routine culling. He had no way of knowing that the humans' legends were about to become his most dangerous enemy and his greatest revelation. Dr. So-Young brushed dust from the ancient stone tablet with careful strokes. Around her, the dead city stretched for kilometers under the light of a red dwarf star. The buildings were made from materials she could not identify, twisted into shapes that hurt to look at for too long. This world had been empty for 50,000 years. But something about it felt like it was still watching. "Found another one," she called to Commander Taman, who was setting up scanning equipment nearby. "Same markings as the others." Taman walked over, his boots crunching on crystallized sand that might once have been glass. His military uniform was covered in the same red dust that coated everything on this forgotten world. "What does it say?" So-Young ran her fingers over the carved symbols, feeling the ancient warnings that someone had desperately etched into stone. "It's another warning. Same message in 3 different extinct languages. The Watchers sleep in the void. They return when the young grow proud. Beware the ships that drink starlight." "Ships that drink starlight," Taman repeated, just like the reports from the missing colonies. Vessels so dark they seemed to absorb light itself. So-Young stood and looked around the empty plaza where they worked. "This is the 14th world we've surveyed, Taman. Every single one has the same warnings carved in stone, painted on walls, etched into metal. 14 different species, all extinct for 50,000 years, all trying to tell us about the same threat." Taman activated his communicator. "Captain Minho, this is Commander Taman. We found more warnings. The pattern holds true." Static crackled over the comm before Minho's voice came through clearly. "Understood, Commander." I have news as well. We've intercepted more of those strange transmissions from the Galactic Rim. Patch them through, So Young said, moving closer to hear. The signal was weak and broken, but unmistakably human in origin. Through the static they heard fragments of words. Watchers in the deep. Ships of shadow. Remember the stories? The darkness between stars, Taman frowned. Those transmissions are coming from automated beacons beyond our furthest colonies. But according to our records, humans never built anything out there. Minho's voice was tense. That's what makes it impossible. The technology signatures are human, but they're old. Some of these beacons have been broadcasting for over 300 years. That's longer than we've been in space. So Young felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold wind blowing across the dead city. Play it again, she said. As the message repeated, she pulled out her translation device and began comparing the human words to the ancient warnings carved in stone around them. The match was almost perfect. Whoever had built those beacons knew about the Watchers. They knew about the ships that absorbed light. They knew about the danger that came from the void between stars. Taman, she said slowly, what if our legends aren't just stories? What if they're actually historical records that got passed down through generations? Taman looked at the alien ruins surrounding them. You mean someone told our ancestors about the Watchers? But who and when? Before So Young could answer, Minho's voice came through the communicator again, urgent now. All teams be advised. We're detecting massive gravitational disturbances at the edge of sensor range. Something big is moving out there. Something really big. So Young quickly packed her equipment while Taman contacted their shuttle pilot. As they prepared to leave the dead world, she took one last look at the ancient warnings carved in stone. 14 extinct civilizations had tried to preserve knowledge of the Watchers. 14 species had failed to survive their return, but humans had survived. Somehow their ancestors had not only encountered the Watchers but had managed to preserve accurate information about them in stories and legends. The question that frightened her was simple. If humans had met the Watchers before, why didn't humanity remember it clearly? Back aboard the research vessel Busan Explorer, So Young worked frantically to decode more of the ancient texts. The ship's computer translated thousands of symbols while she cross-referenced them with human mythology. The connections were impossible to ignore. Every human culture had stories about beings that came from the sky to judge civilizations. Norse mythology spoke of the wild hunt that swept across the heavens. Ancient Chinese texts described celestial dragons that devoured the proud. Hindu scriptures told of cosmic cycles where advanced societies were destroyed to make way for new growth. Taman, look at this, she called. The Sanskrit texts describe destroyers who sleep beyond the wheel of stars. The Mayan codices mention shadow ships that return when men forget their place. These aren't just similar stories. They're the same story told by different cultures. Taman studied the translations over her shoulder. But how is that possible? These civilizations were separated by thousands of years and vast distances. They couldn't have shared information. Unless, So Young said quietly, they were all describing the same actual event. What if the Watchers came to Earth long ago? What if they encountered our ancestors and decided to spare them for some reason? The ship's alarm began beeping, interrupting their research. Captain Jae-hyun's voice came over the intercom. All hands, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Soul's Pride. Captain Minho reports contact with unknown vessels at the Galactic Rim. So Young and Tae-min rushed to the bridge, where Captain Jae-hyun was trying to establish communication with Minho's ship. The main screen showed static mixed with brief images of something impossible. Through the interference, they could see ships unlike anything in the galactic database. They were massive beyond belief, their hulls so black they seemed to cut holes in space itself. No lights marked their positions. No engine glow revealed their movement. They drifted like pieces of the void given form and purpose. Minho's voice came through the static, strained but professional. This is Captain Minho of the Soul's Pride. We are observing approximately 50 unknown vessels of unprecedented size. They appear to be constructed from light-absorbing materials. Repeat, these ships are drinking the light around them just like the ancient warnings described. Can you get closer for detailed scans? Captain Jae-hyun asked. Negative. They've detected our presence. 3 vessels are changing course to intercept. We're withdrawing to safe distance, but by all the old gods, they're beautiful and terrifying, like pieces of the night sky that learned to hunt. The transmission cut to static. So Young stared at the empty screen, her mind racing. The ancient warnings had been accurate down to the smallest detail. The ships that drank starlight were real. The Watchers had returned after 50,000 years of sleep, and somehow, impossibly, humanity had been expecting them. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep hum. Ambassador Hyunwoo walked through them, his black diplomatic uniform crisp and clean. Around him, the chamber buzzed with voices speaking in dozens of alien languages. The air smelled of ozone and strange spices from worlds he had never seen. Hyunwoo took his seat at the small human section. It was placed far from the center, where the powerful species sat. The crystalline Vorth Empire had seats that sparkled like diamonds. The Kalari Collective's representatives moved like a single mind in multiple bodies. The ancient Thren Dominion sat in chairs carved from single pieces of dark stone. The emergency session began when Chancellor Ixari Prime rose. Her crystal body caught the chamber's lights and threw rainbows across the walls. Her voice rang like bells when she spoke. "Fellow beings of the Council," she said, "we face a troubling situation. 17 star systems on the outer rim have gone silent in the past month. No distress signals, no final communications. They simply vanished from our sensors." High voice Thuron 9 of the Kalari spoke next. When one Kalari talked, they all moved their heads in the same way. "Our scout ships found empty space where colonies once thrived. No debris, no signs of battle. It is as if they never existed." Elder Vathos of the Thren leaned forward. His ancient face was covered in scars from countless wars. "This is unlike any attack pattern we have seen in 3,000 years of galactic history. Our enemies always leave traces. Pirates take prisoners. Even the most advanced weapons leave some evidence." Hyunwoo stood slowly. The chamber grew quiet, but not with respect. It was the silence that came when someone unimportant was about to speak. He had felt it many times before. "Honored representatives," Hyunwoo began, "I have studied the reports of these disappearances. The pattern matches something from human history. A few aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Chancellor Ixari Prime's crystals dimmed slightly, which was her species' way of showing annoyance. "Human history?" she asked. "Your species has been traveling between stars for less than 200 years. What could your brief records possibly tell us that our millennia of experience cannot?" Hyunwoo did not let her words stop him. "On our homeworld's oceans, sailors told stories of ghost ships. Vessels that appeared from nowhere took entire crews and vanished without a trace. Our legends speak of watchers that sleep in the dark between stars. They return when civilizations grow too proud." The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens clicked their mandibles in what passed for their species' laughter. Others made honking sounds of disbelief. Elder Vathos slammed his fist on his stone chair. "Legends?" Vathos growled. "Primitive mythology? Human. We ruled the stars when your ancestors were still learning to make fire. We have faced every threat this galaxy can produce. Your tales of sea monsters and space ghosts are the fantasies of a young species that knows nothing of real galactic dangers." High-voiced Thuron 9 spoke in perfect unison with her other bodies. "The Kalari Collective has memories stretching back 15,000 years. Never have we encountered anything matching these human stories. Logic suggests these disappearances have a rational explanation that does not require belief in fairy tales." Hyunwoo felt his face grow warm with anger, but he kept his voice steady. "With respect, the patterns are identical. Ships and settlements taken completely, with no trace left behind. Our legends describe entities that harvest civilizations when they become too advanced. They take everything and leave empty space." Chancellor Ixari Prime's crystals flashed bright red, showing her growing impatience. "Even if we accepted your impossible tales as truth, what would you have us do? Should the combined fleets of 3 galactic powers cower before human bedtime stories? I suggest we prepare for something beyond our current understanding," Hyunwoo replied. "Our naval traditions taught us that the greatest dangers come from unknown waters. We should increase patrols at the galactic rim and study these disappearances more carefully." Elder Vathos stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the human section. "The Thren Dominion has faced the unknown for longer than your species has existed. We do not base military strategy on the frightened whispers of primitive cultures." The other representatives murmured their agreement. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber and saw closed minds everywhere. These ancient species had grown comfortable in their power. They could not imagine that a young race like humanity might know something they did not. The Council's decision is final, Chancellor Ixari Prime announced. We will send standard investigation teams to the affected systems. We will not waste resources chasing human phantoms from the void. Yunwu sat down as the session moved to other matters. Trade disputes, border negotiations, minor conflicts between member species, normal galactic politics. The representatives talked and argued about small things while something vast moved in the darkness beyond their borders. After the session ended, Hyunwoo walked through the station's corridors alone. Other diplomats passed him without acknowledgement. To them, he was just another human, member of a species too young and emotional to understand the serious business of galactic governance. He reached his quarters and activated the secure communication system. The holographic image of Captain Minho appeared above his desk. The captain looked tired, as if he had not slept in days. "Ambassador," Minho said with a slight bow, "how did the Council respond to our warnings?" "As expected," Hyunwoo replied. "They think our concerns are primitive superstition. They refuse to take our legends seriously." Minho's jaw tightened. "My crew and I have been patrolling the outer rim for weeks. We've found 3 more empty systems that haven't been reported yet. Whatever is taking these colonies is getting bolder. Increase your patrols," Hyunwoo ordered. "Keep detailed records of everything you find. When this threat reveals itself, we need to be ready with proof." "And if our legends are true?" Minho asked quietly. "If something ancient is hunting in the dark spaces between stars?" Hyunwoo looked out his window at the stars beyond the station. Somewhere in that darkness, entire worlds were vanishing without a trace. The other species believed their technology and experience would protect them. They had forgotten that the galaxy was older and stranger than any of them understood. "Then we'll face it the way humans always have," he said, "with courage, determination, and the wisdom our ancestors left us in their stories." The communication ended, leaving Hyunwoo alone with his thoughts and the growing certainty that humanity's darkest legends were about to become the galaxy's newest nightmare.